Silicon Valley Bank crashed, other banks are crashing, can we trust the system? What we're gonna do with our money? What if everything crashes? What we're gonna do? Should we bet everything on Bitcoin? Oh, and I'm recording this video in the middle of the storm. It is storm number 3 in the past 2 weeks, and we've been without power for over 4 days and no internet for 4 days. Welcome to 2023 in Silicon Valley. Today we're going to talk about what's going on in the US and in Silicon Valley in particular. 2 weeks ago, you guys were actively asking me to comment on what was going on with Silicon Valley Bank. The channel is Silicon Valley Girl and I live here, and actually Silicon Valley Bank was the bank that we were using for LinguaTrip. So today I'm going to tell you our story with that bank, and I'm gonna tell you what I've learned from investors and other entrepreneurs about what they were going to do with their money, and I will also share my action plan. Now let me start with a story. We came to the US back in 2015 from Russia, having no social security numbers or no tax identification numbers in the US. And we came here with almost zero money. I had around $2,000 on my bank account, which wasn't enough to even pay for rent. Our first apartment was $2,600. So because of that, we really hoped that we would get those $100,000 that we got as an offer from 500 startups sooner rather than later, because we needed to pay for rent, we needed money to survive here. But the condition to get those funds was to start a bank account in the US, which we couldn't really do without the tax number. Until a Silicon Valley Bank representative came to our office at 500 Startups, and she said that Silicon Valley Bank runs a special program for startups with international founders, and they would open a bank account for us in a matter of days, which basically saved us. We were so happy. So they helped us with the whole process, and I was amazed how easy it is to make a wire from the US compared to Russia, because in Russia we have this currency control thing. You have to provide a lot of documents if you're sending money abroad. So I was extremely happy with the bank, and I saw a lot of other startups using it, so I had no doubts about our choice, and we had all of our money there. Until in 2016, I asked them, like, guys, our marketing expenses are growing. I would really love to use a credit card that gives you miles for those marketing expenses, and they told me they didn't have this option. So we started exploring, I started talking to people, and people started recommending the Chase Bank, because they have this Chase Business Inc. card that lets you get triple points if you spend on marketing. And again, our marketing expenses exploded, as well as our revenue. And what started happening in 2017, 2018, we started processing so many payments that Braintree blocked us, and then Silicon Valley Bank started asking a lot of compliance questions, because they're like, how is the startup able to grow so fast in a matter of months? The thing is, our business is highly seasonal, so people start booking their trips in March and April, and this is when our revenue explodes, and then it slows down again. And that was before we introduced online courses. Now it's pretty much stable. And so because we had some issues with customer support, it took them a while to review our accounts. After blockage, we decided that we need a second bank account, and this is how we started our Chase Bank account. And now when you see my videos when we fly Emirates business class with the whole family, 16-hour flight from Dubai to San Francisco for $700, that's because we have a Chase card, because we use it for business expenses, and as a business we spend a lot of money, and this way we're able to sponsor business class trips. And I consulted with my CPA, and please don't take this advice because I'm not a CPA, I'm not a professional, but the IRS doesn't tax you on miles earned. So if you get them as a gift from a bank, that's another story, but if you earn them by spending cash, then there's no tax. So basically, perfect situation. In Chase, we got an amazing manager who we started hanging out with, so we ended up moving all of our money to Chase Bank. And on the day when Silicon Valley Bank collapsed, I think we had like $20 there. And what's also interesting about Silicon Valley Bank is that they had this program where if you raised money as a startup, they would, I think it was, don't quote me on that, but I think they provided 50% of that amount as a loan, which was amazing for a lot of founders here. Imagine the average round is like 15 million, and then you get 7.5 from a bank as a loan. Nobody did that. And that's why they were the Silicon Valley Bank. I think everyone I know had an account there. So basically what happened in 2019, 2020, 2021, People here raised insane amounts of money. A lot of money was poured into startups, and so Silicon Valley Bank had around 60 billion as deposits in 2019. By the end of 2021, they had 190 billion in deposits. But in 2022, the economy started slowing down, Silicon Valley investments started slowing down, so those startups started withdrawing their money because they needed to support their businesses. And Silicon Valley Bank, as a bank, needs to invest money in order to generate revenue, and some of those funds were invested in long-term treasuries that paid smaller interest based on the interest rate back then. Now the interest rate has grown to 5%. And so what basically happened, let me explain in simpler terms. You give me 2,000 bucks, I'm like, okay, perfect, let me buy a camera and rent it out to other creators, make videos, so it brings some cash flow, because otherwise if I just put the money in my pocket, it loses value due to inflation, so I start investing it. But then you suddenly come back and say, Marina, I need those $2,000. I'm like, okay, where do I get them? I need to sell the camera. And I list it on eBay, and it turns out people don't really need this camera anymore because there are fancier cameras on the market for $2,000, and my camera is now only worth $1,500. So I sell it at a loss because I'm forced to return money. This is basically what happened with Silicon Valley Bank. They were forced to sell those securities because they needed liquidity, but they were forced to sell them at a loss, and they sold them at 1.9 billion loss. What happened? The stock went down, people started panicking, and what happened in Silicon Valley, a lot of people texted each other like, oh, just a friendly advice, maybe you should get a bank account somewhere else. And when you get this kind of text, it's actually urgent, like you need to withdraw money right away. Some people were vocal about withdrawing money from Silicon Valley Bank, and this caused bank run. People tried to withdraw almost $42 billion from Silicon Valley Bank. So basically, if this bank run had not happened, the bank could have survived, right? But because it did happen, the FDIC had to shut it down. And again, we have this insurance. We have Uncle Sam, who covers $250,000 worth of your deposits in a single bank. But if you're a Silicon Valley Bank and you're serving startups, then your average deposit is what, 10 million, 15 million? I have a few friends who had $6 million, $10 million in Silicon Valley Bank. And for them, that weekend, when Silicon Valley Bank shut down Friday, and on Saturday, they still didn't know if they were gonna get their money back. Like, that was a crazy week for me as well. I started thinking, okay, if Silicon Valley Bank collapsed, like maybe Chase Bank could collapse. Other banks, who knows? As a Russian, this is in my family history. This is in my genes to lose money all the time. But I've always had this notion that the US is the financial system that I can trust. And on Sunday, it turned out that yes, we can't trust the financial system because the government saved the deposits and returned 100%. Now the thing is, other banks started crashing. And if a year ago you asked me, what is the safest country to store your money? I would say Switzerland. Thing is, Credit Suisse is no longer there. Deutsche Bank is being questioned. The problem is, almost every single bank made this mistake of investing in long-term securities that pay smaller percent. And now, because people are panicking, they're withdrawing their money, banks are forced to sell at a loss, which causes their stock to go down, which causes more panic and more bank runs. Honestly, I don't know where it is going. I don't know what's the capacity of our governments to save the banks. And I started talking to my investment advisor, I started talking to my friends. So what we're gonna do? First of all, if you're in the US, I'm starting more bank accounts for my companies. We'll try to stay around the limit. There are several banks that have claimed to increase their FDIC insurance almost to $1 million. I've heard, I think Mercury Bank sent an email that they're increasing their insurance. Another thing is if you own stocks or securities or bonds, they are in your name, and SEC prevents brokerages from trading your stocks. So basically, if a brokerage goes down, you still own your stock, so they would just transfer it to another brokerage, which gives me some peace of mind. But then who promises that the stock's value wouldn't go down and companies would not default on their bonds? But this is another conversation. I've seen a tweet where the guy offers compensation if Bitcoin doesn't go to $1 million within the next few months. I've talked to some investors, I've talked to my friends. They're still a bit concerned about investing all of your assets into Bitcoin. I think it's a good idea to have some part of your assets, like something you can risk, because again, Bitcoin is super unstable. I don't know, like comment down below what is the safest country these days. But some of my friends decided that they're gonna start bank accounts abroad as well. But again, be careful. I have friends who had their money in Cyprus, And when Cyprus nationalized all of the deposits, they lost all of their money. So I have plenty of stories like that in my circle, just because we're all international. And yeah, we've been to many places. We've been through a lot of crises. We've experienced a lot of turbulence in our lives. But basically what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna start more bank accounts, and I will continue doing what I started doing in 2022. What I realized, yes, you can live your life and optimize for saving. You can optimize for frugal lifestyle so that you feel better when bad things happen. But I also realized that sometimes I invest money and they just lose their value, or I lose them completely. I'd rather live a better life, go to Maldives more often, spend more time with my kids and do less work. I've seen a lot of my friends buy luxury watches, and if you go to a Rolex store, you would see that there are no watches available because there is value in those watches. You can't really buy some fancy designer bags because they're seen as investment and people try to buy them. So I realized that sometimes luxuries can be investment, and investing in time with your family, investing in travel, investing in your education. This is something that no one can really take away from you. And again, it's really up to you how you see your life, but I decided that I will optimize more for enjoying life versus saving, living this frugal lifestyle. There is a saying in my country, if your money is in the bank owns your money, not you, and the bank controls it. And I think the latest events, they kind of prove it to a certain point. Let me know what you think, guys. I've posted about Silicon Valley Bank when the story happened on my Instagram. When it comes to posting videos, I have an approach where I look at the situation first, see what happens, and then I comment. So I'm a little bit slow on commenting on these topics on this channel. But please subscribe to my Instagram, Lingua Marina, and I'm looking forward to reading your comments. Thank you so much for watching this video, and see you very soon in my next videos. Bye bye.